Caitlin Clark
Mm-hmm.
and
I'm a fan.
Angel Reese, right?
Yeah.
They're going back and
I'm a
forth.
fan of both.
And Jamil Hill says by the time Angel Reese is done, she's going to be the Michael Jordan of WNBA.
She said about Angel Reese?
She said Angel Reese, by the time she retires, can you pull up this quote? She said, by the time she retires, she will be the MJ.
When Stephen A. Smith speaks, the entire basketball world listens. And this time, his words hit like a sledgehammer. What started as a bold Michael Jordan comparison from Angel Reese has now exploded into one of the most heated debates in women's basketball. Because according to Stephen A., this wasn't confidence, it was delusion. In a moment that instantly went viral, Stephen A. Smith didn't just disagree. He dismantled the comparison piece by piece, questioning how a player with Angel Reese's game, impact, and resume could even mention Michael Jordan in the same sentence. And then came the line that sent shockwaves across social media. She's no Caitlin Clark. That statement alone divided fans, analysts, and players nationwide. On one side, supporters argue Angel Reese's dominance, physicality, and championships earn her the right to speak boldly. On the other, critics say Caitlin Clark's skill, shooting range, and game-changing presence put her on a completely different level, a level Angel hasn't reached. Stephen A. didn't hold back. He pointed to stats, influence, and basketball IQ, making it clear that comparisons to legends are earned, not claimed. And in doing so, he reignited the growing rivalry narrative between Reese and Clark, a rivalry that's shaping the future of women's basketball. But here's the real question nobody's asking. Did Stephen A. Smith cross the line, or did he say what many were already thinking? Because whether you love Angel Reese or ride with Caitlin Clark, one thing is undeniable. This moment just changed the conversation forever. The moment Angel Reese mentioned Michael Jordan, the internet froze, and then exploded. In today's sports world, comparisons are currency. Players compare eras, fans compare greatness, analysts compare legacies. But there are certain names that sit on a different level. Michael Jordan is one of them. And when Angel Reese's words began circulating, it didn't take long for one of the loudest voices in sports media to respond. Stephen A. Smith. If you've followed sports long enough, you already know how this goes. Stephen A. doesn't whisper. He doesn't ease into criticism. When he believes a line has been crossed, he goes straight through it. And that's exactly what happened here. On his show, Stephen A. made it clear that this wasn't about hating Angel Reese. It wasn't about disrespecting women's basketball. In his words, it was about reality, about understanding what Michael Jordan represents, about knowing when confidence turns into overreach. According to Stephen A., invoking Jordan's name isn't just bold, it's dangerous territory. Because Jordan isn't just a great player. He's a standard, a symbol, a measuring stick that has broken careers just as often as it has inspired them. And that's where Angel Reese found herself. Standing in the middle of a storm she may not have fully anticipated. Stephen A. began by acknowledging Reese's accomplishments. A national championship, relentless rebounding, physical dominance, a visible presence that helped elevate women's college basketball to new heights. He gave her credit, but only briefly, because in his view, respect does not mean immunity. Then came the pivot. Stephen A. argued that Michael Jordan wasn't just dominant, he was transformative. He didn't just win games, he changed how basketball was played, marketed, and consumed. Jordan didn't need to say he was the greatest. The league, the trophies, the global impact said it for him. And that's when Stephen A. drew the line. He questioned why Angel Reese felt the need to make the comparison at all. Why bring Jordan into the conversation when your own legacy is still being written? To him, greatness announces itself. It doesn't ask for validation. But the moment that truly set social media on fire came next. She's no Caitlin Clark. That single sentence became the headline, the soundbite, the clip replayed millions of times. And Stephen A. knew exactly what he was doing when he said it. Caitlin Clark, in his view, represents something different. Not just dominance, but inevitability. A player whose presence alone warps defensive schemes. A shooter who stretches the floor beyond logic. A scorer who doesn't just put up numbers. She changes the geometry of the game. Stephen A. pointed out that Clark's impact is measurable in every possible way. Attendance spikes. TV ratings jump. Arenas sell out. Young players mimic her shot form in driveways across America. That, he argued, is the difference between being great and being generational. And here's where the debate deepens. Angel Reese's game is built on toughness, effort, and physicality. She controls the paint. She imposes her will. She thrives in chaos. Caitlin Clark, on the other hand, thrives in space. She creates moments that feel impossible. Shots from distances most players wouldn't even attempt, let alone make consistently. Stephen A. wasn't saying one style is better morally. He was saying one style changes the sport itself. That distinction matters. Because Michael Jordan didn't just dominate his era, he defined it. He forced defenses to evolve. He forced stars to elevate or disappear. And most importantly, he never needed to say he was Michael Jordan. The world decided that for him. Stephen A. argued that Angel Reese, intentionally or not, skipped steps. That comparisons to Jordan come after sustained excellence, not during the climb. That confidence is powerful, but perspective is essential. Of course, the backlash was immediate. Supporters accused Stephen A. of tearing down a confident young black woman for speaking boldly. Others said he unfairly pitted Reese against Clark, fueling an unnecessary rivalry. Some even argued that men in sports media should stay out of women's basketball entirely. But Stephen A. anticipated that criticism. He doubled down by saying that equality means equal accountability. If women's basketball wants to be treated with the same seriousness as the men's game, then players must be prepared for the same scrutiny. Legends are protected because they've earned protection, not because they've demanded it. And this is where the conversation shifts from basketball to culture. Angel Reese represents a new generation of athletes, outspoken, brand-aware, unafraid of attention. She embraces the spotlight. She leans into controversy. For many fans, that's exactly why they love her. Caitlin Clark represents something closer to the old-school archetype. Let the game speak, let the numbers scream, let the highlights do the talking. Neither approach is wrong. But when you invoke Michael Jordan, you invite comparison on his terms, not yours. Stephen A. made it clear that this wasn't a final verdict on Angel Reese's career. It was a warning, a reminder that greatness isn't claimed in interviews. It's proven over time, under pressure against expectations. And whether people agree with him or not, one thing became undeniable after that segment aired. This wasn't just about a comment anymore. It was about identity. It was about legacy. And it was about who gets to define greatness in the next era of women's basketball. Because once Stephen A. Smith said those words, "She's no Caitlin Clark," the conversation was no longer optional. It was inevitable. By the time Stephen A. Smith finished speaking, the damage was already done. Not to Angel Reese's career, but to the illusion that this debate would stay contained. Because once Caitlin Clark's name entered the conversation, it stopped being about one comment and became a referendum on the future of women's basketball. Stephen A. knew exactly what he was doing. Caitlin Clark isn't just another star. She's a phenomenon. And in today's sports landscape, phenomena change the rules. Stephen A. argued that Clark's rise wasn't fueled by marketing or controversy, but by inevitability. Every possession feels dangerous. Every logo 3 feels expected. She doesn't chase moments, moments find her. And that's the key distinction Stephen A. kept hammering home. Angel Reese thrives on presence, on emotion, on dominance through force and relentlessness. She wins battles. She controls space near the rim. Her impact is physical and psychological. But Caitlin Clark wins wars from everywhere on the floor. She bends defenses before the ball even crosses half court. Stephen A. didn't dismiss Reese's accomplishments, but he reframed them. He asked a question that cut deeper than any insult. If Angel Reese didn't say Michael Jordan's name, would we be having this conversation at all? That question changed everything. Because Jordan comparisons don't elevate you, they test you. They force people to examine not just what you've done, but what you've changed. Jordan didn't dominate because he was loud. He dominated because he was unavoidable. Entire defensive systems existed solely to slow him down, and they still failed. Stephen A. argued that Caitlin Clark is approaching that territory. Not because she's perfect, but because she's altering behavior. Coaches extend defensive range. Players pick up earlier. Arenas sell tickets weeks in advance. Television executives adjust schedules. That's Jordan-like influence. Not championships alone. Not attitude. Influence. And this is where Angel Reese's supporters pushed back hardest. They pointed to rings, to toughness, to her role in LSU's title run, to her leadership and unapologetic confidence. They argued that basketball isn't only about shooting range and highlight reels. It's about winning, controlling the game, and imposing your will. Stephen A. didn't disagree, but he reframed the argument again. Winning, he said, is the result. Greatness is the cause. Michael Jordan didn't win because he declared himself great. He won because his greatness forced everyone else to respond. Caitlin Clark, Stephen A. argued, is forcing that response right now. Angel Reese, while dominant, is still operating within the existing structure of the game. That distinction is uncomfortable, but it's critical. And then there's the cultural layer. Angel Reese represents something modern sports media isn't fully comfortable with yet. An athlete who understands branding as well as basketball. She leans into narratives. She speaks boldly. She doesn't shy away from comparisons or criticism. For many fans, that's empowering. It signals ownership, control. But Stephen A. warned that branding without legacy is fragile. Because the louder you speak, the louder the response will be. Caitlin Clark doesn't need to insert herself into debates. Her game forces the debate to come to her. Stephen A. suggested that silence, in this case, isn't weakness, it's leverage. And that's why the comparison stings. Not because Angel Reese lacks talent, not because she lacks impact, but because Caitlin Clark is changing expectations in real time. She's redefining what range means, what confidence looks like, what leadership sounds like without ever raising her voice. Stephen A. also addressed accusations that he was fueling a rivalry that women's basketball doesn't need. His response was blunt. Rivalries don't hurt the sport, dishonesty does. Pretending all greatness looks the same does a disservice to fans and players alike. Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark don't have to be equals to be elite. They don't have to mirror each other to matter. But comparisons become unavoidable when names like Michael Jordan enter the conversation. And that's the responsibility Stephen A. says comes with confidence. You don't get to invoke the greatest player of all time and then ask for grace when people push back. Jordan comparisons come with Jordan-level scrutiny. That's not hate. That's the price of ambition. As the debate raged on, something else became clear. This moment exposed a fault line in women's basketball discourse. One side values dominance through force, attitude, and championship pedigree. The other values skill scalability, the ability to impact the game from anywhere, at any moment, against any defense. Angel Reese sits firmly in the first category. Caitlin Clark is redefining the second. Stephen A.'s argument wasn't that Reese can't become greater. It's that she isn't there yet. And that difference matters. Because legacies aren't built on confidence alone. They're built on repetition, longevity, and evolution. Jordan didn't become Jordan overnight. Clark isn't finished writing her story either. But right now, Stephen A. believes one trajectory is steeper and more disruptive than the other. Whether fans like it or not, this conversation has shifted how players will speak moving forward. Words matter more now. Comparisons carry weight. And every bold statement invites a microscope. Angel Reese may use this moment as fuel. She may elevate her game, expand her range, silence critics with performance. Or she may continue embracing controversy as part of her identity. Either way, the standard has been set. When Stephen A. Smith said, "She's no Caitlin Clark," he wasn't ending a debate. He was starting one that won't go away anytime soon. Because in the end, this isn't about Stephen A. It's not even just about Angel Reese or Caitlin Clark. It's about how greatness is defined, and who gets to decide when a player has truly arrived. By the time the dust settled, one thing was clear. This wasn't just a media moment anymore. It was a stress test. For Angel Reese, for Caitlin Clark, and for women's basketball itself. Stephen A. Smith's comments didn't fade after a news cycle. They multiplied. Clips spread across ESPN, TikTok, X, and YouTube. Sports radio dissected every word. Former players weighed in. Current players subtweeted. Fans picked sides. And suddenly, a single comparison had turned into a cultural flashpoint. Angel Reese felt it immediately. Every interview became a trap. Every quote was parsed. Every facial expression turned into a headline. Confidence that once felt empowering was now framed as arrogance by critics and bravery by supporters. Reese wasn't just playing basketball anymore. She was defending an image. And that's the part Stephen A. warned about. When you step into the spotlight voluntarily, you don't get to control how long it stays on you. Reese didn't back down. If anything, she leaned in. She continued to speak with confidence, posting on social media, reminding fans of her accomplishments, her rings, her impact. To her supporters, this was proof of resilience. To her critics, it felt like deflection. But beneath the noise, a quieter reality emerged. Angel Reese was being challenged to evolve. Not just her game, but her narrative. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark did the opposite. She said nothing. No tweets. No interviews. No responses. And in today's sports culture, silence is often louder than any statement. Clark kept working, kept training, kept letting her performances speak. And with every highlight, the contrast grew sharper. Stephen A. later pointed this out. Clark wasn't winning the debate because she argued better. She was winning because she didn't argue at all. That silence reinforced Stephen A.'s central thesis. True influence doesn't need defense. It creates gravity. It pulls everything toward it naturally. But the fallout didn't stop with the players. Sports media found itself exposed. For years, critics argued that women's basketball didn't receive the same scrutiny as the men's game. Now, when that scrutiny arrived, the reaction was mixed. Some welcomed it as progress. Others saw it as unfair pressure placed disproportionately on young female athletes. Stephen A. addressed this head-on. Equality, he argued, isn't comfort. It's accountability. Male athletes get criticized for confidence all the time. They get torn down for premature comparisons. They get challenged publicly, aggressively. Women's basketball asking for equal respect means accepting equal critique. That argument resonated with some and infuriated others. Former players defended Reese, saying confidence is essential in a sport still fighting for mainstream recognition. Others sided with Stephen A., warning that premature legend talk can backfire and overshadow real growth. What became obvious was this. Women's basketball had entered a new phase. A phase where narratives matter as much as numbers. Where branding collides with legacy. Where every statement becomes part of a larger conversation. Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark didn't ask to carry that weight, but they are carrying it. And then came the on-court pressure. Every Reese rebound was scrutinized. Every missed shot amplified. Critics watched for confirmation. Supporters watched for vindication. Clark faced pressure too, but of a different kind. Now she wasn't just a star. She was a measuring stick. Opponents didn't just want to beat her. They wanted to humble her. That's what happens when a player becomes symbolic. Stephen A. noted this shift as inevitable. Once a player is crowned, whether officially or unofficially, the league responds. Physicality increases. Defensive schemes tighten. Expectations skyrocket. Clark wasn't immune to this. She was entering it. And here's where the rivalry narrative took on a life of its own. Even when Reese and Clark weren't playing each other, they were being compared nightly. Stats graphics, split screens, polls, debates. Fans didn't just watch games. They watched matchups that didn't even exist yet. Stephen A. acknowledged the danger in that. Rivalries can elevate a sport, but they can also distort reality. Angel Reese isn't Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark isn't Angel Reese. Their paths don't need to intersect to matter. But media thrives on contrast, and this contrast was too compelling to ignore. As the season progressed, the conversation matured. Some critics softened. They acknowledged Reese's growth, her leadership, her continued dominance in her role. Some Clark supporters admitted that basketball greatness isn't one-dimensional, that physicality and toughness matter too. But the core argument remained unchanged. Greatness isn't declared. It's confirmed. Stephen A. never claimed Caitlin Clark was Michael Jordan. He claimed she was closer to that kind of influence, right now. And he claimed Angel Reese's comparison skipped steps that history rarely forgives. That doesn't mean Reese can't get there. It means the clock is now visible. Every great player has a moment where words demand receipts. This was Reese's moment. Not a failure, a challenge. A fork in the road between branding-first stardom and performance-driven legacy. As for Caitlin Clark, her challenge is different. Can she sustain the gravity? Can she evolve as defenses adjust? Can she carry expectation without becoming consumed by it? Those are Jordan-level questions. And that's the real fallout of this debate. Not anger, not division, but elevation. Women's basketball isn't asking to be protected anymore. It's demanding to be measured. Measured by impact, by influence, by change. And whether fans agree with Stephen A. Smith or not, one thing is undeniable. This conversation forced the sport forward. Angel Reese is no longer just a champion. Caitlin Clark is no longer just a scorer. They are symbols now. And symbols don't get to hide from history. If you've made it this far, you already know this isn't just another sports debate. It's a moment that's shaping the future of women's basketball. And now, the conversation doesn't belong to analysts or headlines anymore. It belongs to you. Do you agree with Stephen A. Smith's take that comparisons to Michael Jordan are earned, not claimed? Or do you believe Angel Reese has every right to speak boldly and define greatness on her own terms? And where does Caitlin Clark truly stand in all of this? Generational talent, cultural phenomenon, or something even bigger? This debate only grows when fans speak up. Drop your thoughts in the comments, not just who you side with, but why. Is greatness about rings and toughness? Or is it about influence, skill, and changing the game itself? Respectful disagreement is what pushes the sport forward, and your voice matters more than you think. If you want more deep dive breakdowns, real talk without filters, and stories that go beyond box scores, make sure you like this video. It tells the algorithm this conversation deserves to be seen. And if you're new here, subscribe and turn on notifications. We don't chase headlines. We break them down, challenge them, and tell you what actually matters in the world of basketball. Because this debate isn't over. It's just getting started. Backhand index pointing down sound off below. And let's talk basketball.